Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Every Thursday, all off season long, as we are a week away from the start of the NFL season, NFL insider Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast joins the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on this edition of the podcast. As we saw the initial 53-man roster come out just days ago, but as the roster evolves, we will see more changes, and covering all of that over at InsideTheBirds.com and on the Inside the Birds podcast. The man himself, Adam Caplan, joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN. Adam, how you doing today?
Josh, I'm doing okay. Just kind of dealing with some personal stuff in terms of the storms and the tornadoes that happen, like a lot of us are. Just trying to help and find out how people are doing, just checking in on people, checking with people in my family and so forth. So it's kind of what we're dealing with this, the unexpected devastation yesterday. It's pretty sad and pretty scary.
Yeah, as someone who used to live in Philadelphia myself, seeing the parts of the city underwater like it was honestly jarring to watch this morning.
It was. It's very sad. Seeing the Vine Street Expressway, an artery which I've probably been on thousands of times in my life. I used to work downtown using 676 to get home when I lived on City Avenue. And I just remember, like, when I in the Schuylkill, seeing that water as high as it was, it's almost hard to believe. But thankfully, Josh, that the weather is great now, because that was the other concern, was how quickly the storms would move out. And they moved out around midnight, thank goodness. And some of us who weren't hit by it were able to get back to some normalcy, but the others, my heart is going out to them today.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, everyone from basically Louisiana all the way up to New York at this point. I mean, we got to keep them all in our prayers, because some of the damage has just been absolutely insane at this point.
No doubt.
Adam, back to the football field. Before we get to any specific details, one of the things that you and Jeff brought up on the podcast this morning on Inside the Birds, I want to ask you about is, you've covered the league for a while now. How interesting is it to you? How different is it, the fact that everyone the Eagles waived, none of them were claimed during the claims, and then the Eagles themselves had no claims, and the practice squad is literally, hey, everybody at training camp, the start practice squad, you're all coming back.
It's really, I've never seen anything like it. We were kind of laughing, like, we know the Eagles put in claims, but they didn't get any players. It's not, the Eagles were not the only team to not have any of their players waived, but to get no players claimed, not claim any players. Oh, and by the way, all the players in their practice squad they were with you in training camp. You didn't bring in anyone until today. I'd reported last night that they were going to sign Keyshawn Johnson, the former six-round receiver for the Cardinals, and they did that today. That one's official. But yeah, it's really odd. Look, it's not the worst thing, because what happens is these are your players. They were in training camp. Other than Keyshawn Johnson, there was another player that they signed today, a tight end, Nick Eubanks. I don't know anything about him, but he was an undrafted free agent. I just don't know much about his background. But everyone else are guys that they know, and that's just the way they're going to look at it. At least the guys know the offensive defenses, and they'll go from there.
You mentioned the moves that were made today. As you and Jeff both said multiple times that what was coming, one of those moves today was putting Tyree Jackson on the reserve injured list. But it was interesting to me, Adam, Jack Driscoll joins him as well. That's now 3 weeks that you're going to be without arguably your best backup offensive lineman.
At a minimum, by the way. It's a minimum of 3 weeks. Then you see, like for Josiah Scott, I'm told it should be in the 2 to 3 week period on his hamstring strain, as long as he doesn't have a setback. But Driscoll, he's got a pectoral strain. Jeff Mosher reported last summer that Javon Hargrave, he had a pectoral strain, and he missed basically all training camp. He was not right, physically to start the season. So we'll see. We'll see on just, by the way, even if the Eagles use the short-term IR designation, that does not mean he'll be back within 4 weeks. It just means it's a minimum of 3. That is the new IR rule, which we'll have better clarity on our next show. I have all the language. I'll read it to you so everyone can understand it. But the rules they all changed last year. And in fact, practice squads now are 16 players. The international player Matt Leo does not count, so that technically could give them 17 players. And they filled it out today, by the way. So yeah, the Jack Driscoll one, you're right. That's disappointing, and that was a new one. We were not aware of that one.
Also, another move that was interesting, they re-signed Hassan Ridgeway. We also know T.Y. McGill is on the reserve COVID list. So what is your perspective on what the Eagles are doing on the D-line?
Yeah, we were shocked. Like, when Jeff and I did our preview, right? Our preview last Thursday for Cut Down Day on, actually, what, goodness gracious, it's this Thursday. The one we did for this past Monday show. We did not have them keeping two rookies to be their top backup D tackles. We didn't see that. That was the spread. The 7 linebackers was shocking. It's another one where I couldn't have predicted that one. But I don't have it in front of me. I don't know that I had Ridgeway making it, but I did think they could bring him back, and they did. He looked a little heavy in training camp. I'd heard he had an up and down training camp, as did T.Y. McGill, by the way. T.Y. McGill was more of a flash player in training camp. As you mentioned, he's on the COVID list. We'll see when he comes back. But Jeff and I had said there's just no way you're going into the game against Atlanta without somebody else who's played in the National Football League as a backup D tackle. You just can't do that, and that's why they brought Ridgeway back.
NFL insider Adam Caplan joining us here at Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. The latest edition of the pod dropped this morning. Also check out all of their coverage over at InsideTheBirds.com. Adam, another thing that happened in the last 24 to 48 hours was Zach Ertz finally spoke to the media after a long time. And I thought you and Jeff were up a great point this morning on the pod by saying, listen, it was great to hear from Zach, but we still have some questions about exactly what is going on with his future.
Yeah, it was fascinating because, Zach never talked. There were rumors that he was going to talk once in training camp. He didn't do that. And I think what he did was, this is just me speaking without talking to Zach, but I know him fairly well, and I just kind of know, we all knew, and anyone who covers the team, fans knew this. It was very ugly for Zach in the club last summer when he didn't get his extension. I know it bothered him. The negotiations didn't go well. There was a major difference of opinion on what the structure should look like on the guaranteed money, as I understand it. And he had the high ankle sprain, wound up having surgery after the season. It just was a lost season for him. And then obviously the team was bad. The coaches got fired. For a guy who cares as much as Zach does, all players care, but you could take his caring of the football team and the community and his wife Julie and his mom Lisa, who lives here, to a different level. And the whole thing, I think, kind of bothered him, is my read of what happened last season. And once he knew, to move this forward, once he knew he wasn't getting traded, because he knew that the Eagles, it's not a secret, they wanted a decent amount for him. And Zach also is making $8.5 million, not the easiest contract to trade. Just once he knew, let's leave it at his part of it, that he knew, which is that he knew he probably was not going to be traded, which probably recently. I think we all kind of came to that conclusion because there was nothing that would suggest that it was going to happen, that he just took the high road, which is what he should do. And I was a little bit surprised. And I think I'm guessing he meant, when he said he wanted to retire as an Eagle, I just think maybe he wants to live here. Because he's on the final year of his deal. I mean, is he really going to get another deal next year? I don't see that, but you never say never. Look, he's still here. No one thought that was going to happen. But it was a fascinating interview. Zach is very introspective of his life and his career. That's one of the things I really admire about him. He was pretty quiet when he got here. I was working for the Eagles, Josh, in 13 from a media standpoint. 11, 12, and 13, Zach's first year. Man, he didn't say anything. Not that he talks a lot, but when he does, he's generally a deep thinker, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, one of the things he also said, Adam, is part of the reason why they asked about why he was quiet this offseason is, he didn't want to blow up the city. It was one of the words he used. And I thought it was very interesting to me that, this guy, it sounds funny coming from him because he's not that kind of person to say weird stuff like that. But it tells me that this guy genuinely cares about the city. He cares about his teammates. He cares about, what he's done for the organization. And I told Jeff Moshe yesterday, it's so refreshing to hear somebody talk like that.
Yeah, he'll be an Eagle Hall of Famer someday. No question about it. The Super Bowl run was tremendous. The best tight end in Eagles history. There have been a lot of good ones, but he's the best one. A great draft pick in the second. Boy, what a great draft that 13 draft. Lane Johnson the first, and Zach Ertz in the second. That's a pretty damn good draft, and both are still playing for the football team, which is, it's not often. There aren't very many players who are drafting 13 are still with the original team, but Zach's been a great Eagle, and He'll hand off someday, obviously, to Dallas Goedert. He's the guy that the Eagles believe it could be special. But right now, Zach is on the football team.
Now, you mentioned Dallas Goedert. So how intriguing is it for you to look at this offense and say, look, you got these two tight ends. They both need to get reps on the field. We got a very young receiver core. How is that going to impact the Nick Sirianni first-year offense?
Yeah, this is the hardest thing to project, Josh. I'll be honest with you, because every indication that we were getting is that Ertz would not be on the football team. And then once we got into late July, I'm like, you know what? These coaches, they better plan for Ertz to be here. I don't think the Eagles are going to get what they think, and Zach's not taking a pay cut. It doesn't seem like so. And he's not, obviously he's made, but I'm talking in terms of a trade. I don't think he would have taken a pay cut just to get traded. So here we are. He's on the team. And by the way, the Eagles led teams in running 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends last season, over 30%, which is a lot. Over 30 of your plays are with 2 tight ends. So I think you got to account for him. We'd said all along that if they did trade Ertz, this would be a heavy 11 team, 3 receivers and 1 tight end. But now Ertz is on the team. He's got to play. And I would also say, and I definitely screwed up in not mentioning this before, we just assumed we took Ertz as an afterthought kind of training camp. We rarely talked about him. He had a great training camp. Not only that, as one Eagle source said to me, he looks like the old Zach. So moving forward, Josh, what does that mean for receptions? It's hard to project because they want Goddard to be the guy there, but Zach Ertz is there. So this is new staff. It's very hard. If you're into fantasy football, it's very hard to project Zach Ertz's catch total. I'm glad I don't have to do that for a living. I'd have a hard time doing it.
NFL insider Adam Caplan joining us here at Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. The latest edition of the pod dropped this morning. And, of course, all their coverage over at InsideTheBirds.com, and follow them on Twitter as well at InsideBirds. Adam, let's flip it over to the defense.
Sure.
I told Andrew when he was on the show, because we basically talked live when the rosters came out on Tuesday on Football at 4, then Jeff yesterday. I want to ask you, 7 linebackers? Talk about a team that barely prioritized linebacker for so long, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, we have 7 linebackers. What a change of pace.
Well, it's pretty funny. So I exchanged text messages with personnel people, and they know I have an expertise in the Eagles. So one guy said to me, WTF with linebackers, why are they keeping 7? I said, I have no idea. I don't know. I didn't know what to say to the guy. I know Sean Bradley is a really good special teams player. He's not going to play on defense. Patrick Johnson is their backup Sam. Whenever they play with a Sam linebacker, Avery's in first. They all have different roles. T.J. Edwards will be a rundown guy. Wilson and Singleton are their Eagles are going to be a 4-2-5 defense. So Singleton and Wilson will be the linebackers, and Davion Taylor's hurt. But at some point, someone's got to go, you would think. I mean, it's one thing if they ran a 34 defense. That's a different story because you start 4 linebackers in a 34. In a 4-2-5, you only start 2. So what is the point? It's just, I don't know. That one would floored me. I'll give anyone $50 if they could prove to me that they had set in their projection. Jeff and I did our own, and the ones we got wrong were comical because we didn't know that Jordan Howard's going to make it. Kudos to Bo Wolf for the Athletic for getting that's a great call by him.
Yeah.
But I didn't see Jordan Howard getting cut. I know he's back on the practice squad. That makes sense, but I certainly didn't see him getting cut.
Adam, you mentioned Davion Taylor. Are you also surprised that he wasn't put on the reserve injured list?
Yeah, that would tell me that they think he's coming back within 3 weeks. Because why? The Alshon Jeffrey thing blew up in their face last year. Remember?
Yeah.
That he did not come back when they thought he would. In fact, he was out several weeks longer than they thought. So they got that one wrong. I don't know if he had a setback. We never got the straight scoop on him. And Davion Taylor had a significant calf strain. But, man, he's been out forever. These calf strains can be tough. He had 2 different injuries. He had a quad now, I think a calf. So to answer your question, yeah, I was surprised that they didn't do that.
And on the flip side of all that, they have 7 linebackers, but they didn't keep as many safeties. And I'm curious to see, because of the guys they put on the practice squad, how many guys could potentially be called up on game day, Adam, because we saw that happen a lot last year.
This was odd to me. This is where I really thought that they would keep Elijah Riley on the roster, because what we were told is of all the young safeties, you can make a case he had a better – well, Kavon Wallace is hurt, so I don't want to kind of include him in that. But the safeties that they had in camp, he had one of the best camps. And as we said, none of their players were claimed off waivers. So to answer your question, yeah, it's 4 of them on the roster. and 2 are hurt. Rodney McLeod's come back from ACL reconstruction. He's in practice or played since last season. Wallace injured his groin more than once. He injured it once, and then he injured it again. So to me, I just don't understand why they would take a chance, but they did, and they got lucky. They made the right. I guess they projected these guys wouldn't get claimed. They didn't. Now Josiah Scott's on IR, so you're a little bit light at corner. You've got Max as your slot, Slay, and Nelson, and then right now, Zach McPherson, right, who's a rookie. So they're light there as well.
Yeah, on the practice squad, you got Craig James, Michael Jacquet, Elijah Riley, and Grayland Arnold. I mean, you can't call all 4 of them up on game day. That'd be ridiculous.
Right. So what you can do, first of all, the reason why I didn't have Craig James on the roster is because he had been hurt all training camp. I thought they would not keep him. They didn't. They could just bring him along slowly. You don't have to rush him. And then when you look at the practice squad, yeah, I mean, they could bring up Jacquet, Riley, who could play corner. He did some in Army, but he's more of a safety now. They need someone who they know can play. Jacquet, I would think, would be that guy, but man, he's a project. The hope is you don't have to bring him up. Josiah Scott has got to miss a minimum of 3 weeks. So that's kind of where that's at.
And Adam, one of the things that you guys were the first I heard say on the Inside the Birds podcast, you talked about the Fluid 53. What is your expectation? Because we are still a week away from the start of the NFL seasons, which means we are 10 days away from the Eagles actually playing. So how many more changes do you expect to see the Eagles potentially make in the next week plus?
All right, it's a good question. I would say the linebacker position, I just don't see the point of having 7. We're in the 4th preseason week where they're not playing games anymore, so the practice week starts Wednesday of next week. They'll have a light practice on Wednesday. They'll have Monday. They'll have off Tuesday and practice Wednesday. That's the way it works week 1 when you play on Sunday. So look, if they have 7 linebackers start next Wednesday, Wednesday of next week, then that's what they're probably going to keep in, going into the season or to week 1. But I don't know that anything will change. Now the question is, will Jordan Howard be on the opening day roster or still be in the practice squad week 1? That's the question. I would think he'd be. I know Jeff said in our show that dropped this morning he thinks Howard will be up for the game. It would make sense. Plus, when you look at their offense, right? We need to learn about Dickerson, his status for the week. And by the way, if he's not practicing fully, he must be listed on the injury report on Wednesday of next week. Same for Rodney McLeod with his coming back from the ACL, so we'll learn more about him. So there, and then I would say defensively, you mentioned the D tackles. We need to understand how much Milton Williams and Tui Pelotu, if he dresses, plays, because Ridgeway knows this defense. I know he was released, but he knows the defense. This guy's played in the league. The Eagles have always liked him. He just didn't have a great training camp.
He's NFL insider Adam Caplan at Caplan NFL on Twitter. Check out the latest edition of the Inside the Birds podcast, dropped this morning. Subscribe, download it, share it. Go check out InsideTheBirds.com. All the great content they have over there. And, of course, Adam will be back next Thursday's edition of Football at 4, which will be the first day of the official 2021 NFL season. Adam, great stuff today.
Josh, thank you.